the torches along the Palatine Hill burned low that night, their wavering flames throwing long, uncertain shadows across the marble corridors of the imperial palace. Rome had seen tyrants, conquerors, philosophers, and madmen rise to power, but none stirred such dangerous fascination, such hungry whispers, as the woman whose footsteps now echoed softly through the emperor's private gardens. Her name was Valeria Messalina, the young wife of Emperor Claudius, barely in her 20s, empress of the mightiest empire on earth, and, as every senator and slave already knew, a woman whose appetites, for power, for pleasure, for survival, would one day destroy almost everything and everyone around her. But not tonight. Tonight, Messalina glided between the cypress trees like a queen who believed the world itself had been sculpted for her. Moonlight caught the gold threads of her robe, shimmering around her like an omen. Behind her, a handful of servants kept their distance. None dared speak unless spoken to. Rumor claimed she could ruin a man with a single glance, have him exiled before dawn, or, if she felt generous, lift him to heights he had never dreamed of. They had reasons to believe it. She'd done all three. Rome in the year 47 CE pulsed with contradictions. The empire was rich, its trade routes humming with wealth from Britain to Egypt. But its Senate was weak, overshadowed by imperial freedmen, who managed the affairs of scholar emperor too cautious for Roman tastes. That was why eyes drifted not to Claudius, quiet, bookish, introspective, but to Messalina, whose life blazed like a torch in a city addicted to spectacle. She was, after all, the perfect storm, a noble woman from the ancient Claudian family, a political asset, a bride chosen for an emperor who needed legitimacy, and a woman whose charm could disarm even her fiercest critics. Those who underestimated her rarely survived long. Earlier that day, a scandal had erupted in the Senate, one of many tied to her name. A wealthy noble, Senator Marcus Vinicius, had been stripped of his family's estates after being accused of insulting the empress at a banquet. No one openly questioned the truth of the accusation. They knew better. Vinicius had risen too quickly in the public's favor, and Messalina, ever watchful, had removed him before he became a threat to her influence. In Rome, power was a battlefield, and Messalina fought with weapons more potent than swords. Yet tonight, her expression was unreadable. She stood near the edge of the garden pond, staring at her reflection as ripples distorted her features. Behind her, a man cleared his throat nervously. It was the imperial freedman Narcissus, Claudius's secretary, and one of the few who understood the danger she posed. "You summoned me, Augusta?" Messalina didn't turn. "I hear my husband considers elevating more freedmen to advisory roles." Narcissus swallowed. He knew exactly what she meant. Claudius depended heavily on 3 freedmen, Narcissus himself, Pallas, and Callistus. Their influence was enormous, and resented by the aristocracy. Messalina's power was tied to controlling them as much as controlling Claudius. "I am sure the emperor trusts your counsel above all," Narcissus replied cautiously. She smiled, faint but sharp. Trust is a fragile thing in Rome. Narcissus felt a chill. He had seen execution orders signed with a gentler smile. Messalina turned now, fixing him with dark eyes that glinted in the torchlight. "You will ensure I am informed of every decision he makes." He bowed. "Of course." "And Narcissus?" Her voice lowered. "If a woman ever rises to challenge my position, you will tell me first." Narcissus hesitated, then nodded. "You have my word." It was not loyalty that bound him. It was survival. Messalina had risen quickly, too quickly, for a city that distrusted sudden success. Married to Claudius before he became emperor, she had already borne him 2 children, Octavia and Britannicus. Some admired her devotion as a mother. Others whispered she used her children like shields to cement her position. After all, Claudius was older, scholarly, and politically inexperienced. The Senate did not fear him. The army did not revere him. But Messalina, ambitious, cunning, unpredictable, was a force they could not ignore. She held lavish feasts where wine flowed like rivers and secrets spilled like blood. She arranged marriages, brokered alliances, destroyed families, and rewarded those who served her well. She could charm a general and terrify a senator in the same evening. Rome had known powerful empresses before, but none who wielded influence with such boldness or such recklessness. As she walked deeper into the garden, Messalina paused beneath an archway of vines. A figure waited there, Gaius Silius, the handsomest nobleman in Rome, and one of her most dangerous choices. He bowed. "Augusta," her lips curved. "You came." "You summoned me," Silius replied, though even he sounded breathless in her presence. Their relationship was an open secret among certain circles, though no one dared mention it. Silius was married. Messalina was the empress. Their meetings were reckless, defiant, and politically charged. But Silius was ambitious, and Messalina's favor was a gateway to unimaginable power. "Walk with me," she said. Together they moved through the garden. Their steps were quiet, but the air between them hummed with threat. Not from each other, but from the world that would devour them if their liaison became public. "You shouldn't come here so boldly," Silius said under his breath. "If Narcissus or Pallas—" "I do not fear freedmen," she cut in, "or senators, or jealous wives. You should fear Claudius." Messalina laughed softly. "Claudius sees only what I allow him to." Silius' frown deepened. "Even emperors can awaken." "Then let him," she whispered. "By the time he understands, it will be too late." Silius stopped walking. "Augusta, what exactly are you planning?" Messalina turned him fully now, face shadowed, voice low. "Rome is not ruled by those who wear crown. Rome is ruled by those who shape the man who wears it." Silius felt his pulse quicken. He knew the rumors, that some believed Messalina's ambition stretched beyond being merely the emperor's wife, that perhaps she sought power greater than any woman before her. "Do you intend to—" She placed a finger to his lips. "Not here. Not yet." Her silence said more than her words. At that moment, a servant raced toward them, breathless. "Augusta, a messenger from the Senate waits. They say it is urgent." Messalina's expression changed instantly, soft charm hardening into cold calculation. "Very well," she said. "Silius, remain here." As she strode away, Silius watched her go, the silken figure whose passions ignited scandals and whose schemes stirred fear even in the heart of the emperor. He knew she was dangerous. He knew that aligning himself with her was a gamble that could cost him everything. But he also knew one truth. No one in Rome shone as brightly or as fatally as Messalina, and the night was far from over. Dawn broke over Rome with a kind of indifferent brilliance, gilding the tiled roofs, marble temples, and crowded tenements in equal measure. On the Palatine Hill, the sun's first rays slipped to the tall columns of the imperial residence, illuminating a world built on ceremony and controlled by secrets. Inside the palace, Emperor Claudius sat hunched over a scroll in his private study. His hand shook slightly, a tremor more from nerves and age. Claudius was a scholar before he was emperor, a man more comfortable analyzing ancient texts than commanding legions. His stutter, his limp, and his physical awkwardness had made him an object of mockery in his youth. Even now, as emperor, he often felt like an intruder in a world of ambition and ruthlessness. But he was not foolish. He knew Rome's elite watched him closely. He knew the Senate tolerated him more than they respected him. Above all, he knew his wife, Messalina, wielded influence, sometimes dangerously so. Still, he trusted her. He loved her, and love often blinds the wise. A knock came at the door. "Enter," Claudius said. The freedman Pallas, tall, clever, and polished in manner, stepped inside. "Caesar, the Augusta requests an audience." Claudius blinked in surprise. Messalina rarely requested anything. She simply appeared. "Send her in." Moments later, Messalina swept into the study, the picture of regal composure. Her hair, pinned with gold ornaments, gleamed under the light. Her eyes, dark, expressive, unreadable, flicked briefly toward Pallas before fixing on her husband. "Good morning, my lord," she said, placing her hands delicately on Claudius's shoulders. "You work too early as always." Claudius smiled weakly. "Duty does not wait for the sun." "Then who tends to your health?" she murmured. "Or your rest?" Pallas watched silently. He knew this game well. The gentle voice, the softness she reserved only for Claudius. Behind those expressions lived a mind sharp enough to carve empires. Messalina stepped back and spoke more formally. I'm told the Senate seeks to limit your authority over judicial appointments. Claudius stiffened. Is that true? Pallas hesitated. Some senators resent the power of imperial freedmen, and by extension, those close to you. Meaning me, Messalina said. Pallas bowed diplomatically. Only the emperor was allowed to accuse the empress. No freedman dared to. Messalina leaned toward Claudius. My love, if they weaken the freedmen, they weaken you. And if they weaken you, your enemies will circle like wolves. Claudius sighed. The Senate distrusts me. They think I rely too heavily on my household. Messalina's voice turned firm. Then you must stand stronger than ever. Show them you are emperor by divine right, not by Senate grace. Her words struck him deeply. Claudius, who had spent a lifetime underestimated, found comfort in her certainty. Perhaps you are right, he said softly. Pallas bowed. Shall I prepare a decree reaffirming imperial authority? Yes, Claudius replied. Let Rome remember who rules it. Messalina's hand squeezed his shoulder. A wise decision, Caesar. As she glided out, Pallas watched her carefully. He respected her, but feared her more. Outside the study, Messalina paused, the mask of devotion dropping from her face. Her servant, a sharp-eyed young woman named Lygia, approached. You handled him well, Augusta. Messalina smirked. Claudius is good at heart. That is why he is so easy to guide. Lygia lowered her voice. And Silius? He is impatient, Messalina said, annoyance flickering across her features. Impatience is dangerous in Rome. Yet he waits for you, as he should. Messalina moved down the corridor, her robe trailing behind her like a streak of captured sunlight. In public she was the emperor's loyal wife, the mother of his children, the embodiment of Roman virtue. In private she was a strategist, a manipulator, a woman navigating a world ruled by men who underestimated her power. She embraced that underestimation like a blade concealed beneath silk. Later that day, the palace hosted a small council meeting. Claudius listened intently as Narcissus' palace, and Callistus reported on matters of state. Grain shortages in Egypt, unrest among Gallic tribes, a legal appeal requiring imperial judgment. Messalina watched silently from her seat, eyes flicking from one freedman to another. These men held the empire together and simultaneously threatened her influence. Narcissus caught her gaze and looked away quickly. She smiled. Good. He remembered his promise. As the meeting ended, Callistus, the most politically connected of the freedmen, approached her. Augusta, he said cautiously, rumors reached the palace that Senator Venetia's supporters demand a hearing. Messalina's expression didn't change. Let them demand. What is Rome without gossip? Callistus lowered his voice. Some say his accusation was convenient. Her eyes sharpened. Are you suggesting I punish him unjustly? Callistus stepped back. Never, Augusta. Then choose your words with greater care. She walked away, leaving him pale. Even the emperor's most influential advisers tread lightly around her. But Rome itself did not tread lightly. In the Subura district, smoky, loud, overflowed with merchants and thieves, rumors twisted faster than serpents in the forum. Street performers acted out exaggerated tales of palace affairs. Tavern keepers speculated which noble Messalina had ruined this week. Prostitutes laughed as they compared clients to the empress's rumored lovers. Messalina did not hear these rumors firsthand, but she felt their existence through the constant stares, the quiet laughter of senators, the increasingly hostile looks from noble women who fear their husbands' ambitions or desires might lead them into her orbit. The city adored her and feared her in equal measure, but adoration fades, fear grows, and resentment festers. That evening, Messalina hosted a banquet in one of the palace gardens. Lamps hung from the trees like small floating suns, casting warm light over the guests. The air was fragrant with roses, fried honey cakes, roasted boar, and expensive wines imported from Gaul. Guests laughed, gossiped, and performed the usual social dance of Rome's elite. Senators bragged. Their wives glared. Poets recited flattering verses. Musicians played softly in the background. Messalina moved among them like a goddess at ease among mortals. Silius arrived late, but when he did, their eyes met instantly. He approached her with a bow. "Augusta, Senator," she replied with a dazzling smile. "You look troubled." "Your messenger today worried me," he said quietly. "Something is happening. Everything in Rome is always happening." She leaned closer, but only a few understand what truly matters. "And what is that?" Messalina's voice was low and electric. Power must never be shared. Silius exhaled slowly. "Your enemies multiply." "My enemies," she whispered, "are only dangerous when I stop moving." "And what of Claudius?" he asked. "What place does he hold in these plans?" Messalina's gaze flickered, just for a moment, with something unreadable. "Claudius holds a throne," she said, "but Rome holds a future, and I intend to shape it." Their conversation ended abruptly when a senator's wife passed by, but the tension between them lingered like charged air before a storm. Later that night, when most guests had gone, Silius found her again near the colonnade. "You're playing a dangerous game, Messalina," he said, "even for you." "And you're still here," she replied, "which makes you part of it." Silius hesitated, but only for a moment. Then he took her hand, and Messalina smiled, a smile that promised triumph or destruction, or perhaps both, because history would remember what came next, and the empire had no idea the magnitude of the scandal that was about to erupt. Rome moved through the weeks that followed as though nothing had changed, but everything had. The Senate continued its petty disputes. The markets buzzed with trade, and Claudius issued edicts with his usual scholarly earnestness. Yet beneath the calm surface of the empire, subtle currents shifted. Messalina was changing them. Her influence had never been subtle, but now it grew bolder. Her banquets became more lavish. Her circle of supporters swelled, and the whispers surrounding her multiplied faster than palace servants could smother them. But nothing caused more murmuring or more danger than her escalating involvement with Gaius Silius. It began with small things. Silius spent more time on the Palatine. Too much time. Senators noticed. Their wives noticed even more. One afternoon, Messalina invited him to observe a troupe of dancers she considered employing for an imperial celebration. On the surface, the event was innocent, but the way she stood too close, the way their conversation lingered privately, the way eyes flicked toward them from across the garden, nothing about it felt innocent. Lygia, Messalina's chief attendant, tried to warn her. "Augusta, people talk." "People always talk," Messalina replied. "This is different. They say he—" Messalina cut her off with a sharp look. "You forget yourself." Lygia bowed her head. "Forgive me." Messalina dismissed her, but the unease lingered in the air. Silius himself was no fool. He knew the danger. He felt it one evening. As they walked to the palace gardens, the sound of distant fountains masking their voices, Silius stopped abruptly. "Messalina, we cannot continue like this." She turned slowly, her expression unreadable. "Are you afraid?" "Yes," he answered honestly. "And you should be too." She stepped closer. "Fear is what keeps weak men obedient. But fear has never ruled me." He gripped her wrist gently. "Then let reason rule you. If Claudius—" She pulled her arm away. "Claudius only sees what others place in front of him." "But Rome sees everything," Silius insisted. "Every senator, every freedman, every wife in the capital has eyes on us." Messalina's voice lowered. "And who are they to judge me? They whisper behind their marble pillars, but they do far worse in the shadows." "A whisper is more dangerous than a secret," Silius said. "Whispers spread. Whispers grow." She paused, studying him. For a moment, the Empress vanished, and a young woman appeared, one who lived every day aware that her power existed only as long as she held the Emperor's trust. "You speak of fear as if it is a burden," she said, "but fear is a weapon, and those who know how to use it control Rome." Silius exhaled. "You think you control Rome?" Messalina's eyes gleamed. I think Rome has forgotten the power of an empress, and I intend to remind them. The true turning point arrived on a quiet afternoon when Messalina, Silius, and a few close allies met the estate of one of Silius's trusted friends. No imperial servants. No prying eyes. For the first time, the conversation moved beyond whispered passion and into something far more ambitious and far more treasonous. Silius's advisor, a seasoned senator named Tacfarinas Crispus, looked between them with disbelief. "You do realize what you are suggesting?" he asked. Messalina's voice was calm. "I am suggesting nothing that Rome has not seen before. Replacing an emperor?" Crispus hissed. "Claudius may be weak, but he is emperor by the Praetorian Guard's favor, and whose loyalty funds a guard." Messalina countered. "Who ensures their families are fed? Who has paid their commanders to protect the palace?" Crispus stared. "You!" She smiled faintly. "Do not be shocked. Power is maintained not with crowns, but with coin." Silius remained silent, watching her with a mixture of admiration and dread. Crispus turned to him. "And you? You would risk everything for this." Silius finally spoke. "If destiny opens a door, who are we to refuse it?" Crispus raked a hand through his hair. "You are both mad." "No," Messalina corrected. "We are Roman." Crispus took a deep breath. "Even if Claudius is removed, even if the Senate is pressured to accept Silius, do you truly believe the empire will tolerate the scandal?" Messalina's answer was simple. "They will if I stand beside him. The people adore me. The guard respects my influence. The Senate fears me." Crispus looked at Silius. "She is dragging you into ruin." Silius stepped forward, voice steady. "No, she is dragging me into history." Messalina's lips curved into a small, triumphant smile. The plot now had form, shape, direction. It was reckless and fatally bold. Silius would divorce his wife. Messalina would arrange for Claudius to be kept away from Rome for a period, perhaps on the pretext of inspecting Ostia's new harbor works. During that absence, Messalina and Silius would secure key backers, bribe critical officers, and present themselves as the rightful rulers of Rome. They would be unstoppable, or so they believed. But Rome is not clay that bends quietly. Rome listens. Rome gossips. Rome sees. And Rome had begun to talk too loudly. The first warning came through Narcissus. He found Claudius in the archives, reviewing legal cases, and approached with cautious urgency. "Caesar, there are rumors in the city." Claudius looked up, blinking. "Rumors? Rome never lacks those. These concern the Augusta." Claudius's expression softened. "Messalina is often discussed. People are envious." Narcissus hesitated. "This time it is different." Claudius frowned. "Speak plainly." Narcissus lowered his voice. "They say she meets secretly with Gaius Silius. Too often. For a moment." Claudius simply stared, unable to process the notion. Then he shook his head. "Impossible." "Caesar, I urge caution," Narcissus said. "You urge distrust of my wife." Claudius snapped, a rare flash of anger. Narcissus bowed quickly. "Forgive me. I only report what reaches my ears." Claudius dismissed him. But the seed had been planted. It would take time to grow, but when it did, Rome would tremble. Meanwhile, Messalina moved forward with increasing boldness. She arranged for Silius to attend imperial functions openly. She pushed for new appointments that benefited his allies. She rewarded those loyal to her faction. The lines between empress and conspirator blurred dangerously. One night, in her private chambers, she told Silius quietly, "We are close." "How close?" he asked. "One more step," she replied, "and Rome will belong to us." Silius gripped her hand. "Then we take that step." But the empire does not allow such steps to go unnoticed. Not when the throne is at risk. Not when the empress defies every rule of Roman loyalty. Not when ambition grows louder than caution. In the coming days, Messalina would cross the one boundary from which there is no return, a choice so shocking that even her allies would question her sanity, a choice that would ignite a scandal unlike anything Rome had ever witnessed, a choice that would seal her fate. And it would begin with a wedding, her own, while still married to the emperor. The morning that would shatter Messalina's world began with a celebration, her own, not a whispered meeting, not a hidden rendezvous, not another rumor drifting through Rome's alleys. A wedding, a public, lavish, legally binding wedding, between Valeria Messalina, wife of Emperor Claudius, and Gaius Silius, the most ambitious man in Rome. It was either the boldest political maneuver in imperial history, or the act of a woman who had allowed ambition to outrun reason. Historians still debate which. The sun stood high over the Campus Martius, where Silius's grand estate glittered with marble and gold. Musicians played flutes and lyres. Slaves scattered rose petals across the floor. Senators arrived in elegant togas, laughing nervously as they exchanged glances, unsure whether they were witnessing the birth of a new political order or the beginning of a catastrophe. Rumors whispered that Messalina had claimed Claudius' plan to divorce her. Others said she declared that the gods had revealed a new destiny for Rome. Some insisted she believed Claudius would never dare oppose her, but the truth, as always, was more complicated. Messalina wanted the throne secured for her children. Silius wanted the throne for himself. Both believed Rome could be shaped by their will, and both underestimated the one man too often overlooked, Narcissus. Messalina arrived at the estate with the confidence of a queen. Draped in a brilliant gown dyed with Tyrian purple, she looked every bit an empress, and more dangerously, a bride. The crowd parted for her like ripples on a lake. Silius stepped forward, wearing a ceremonial wreath. His eyes held triumph, but also unease. "You came," he whispered. "Did you doubt it?" she replied. "Messalina, once we do this, there is no return to Claudius." "There was no return long ago," she said. But even as she spoke, something flickered in her expression. A shadow, a warning she ignored. The wedding proceeded with shocking formality. Priests invoked the gods. A white ewe was sacrificed. Silius placed a ring upon her hand. They clasped right arms, as Roman law demanded. It was official, legal, public, unmistakable treason. The guests, terrified witnesses, forced themselves to cheer. Rome had never seen anything like it. At that very moment, Claudius was in Ostia, inspecting the new harbor constructions. He believed Messalina remained in Rome, attending to domestic matters. He believed she awaited his return. He believed, despite occasional rumors, that she was loyal. Belief is often the most fragile foundation for an empire. As Claudius reviewed architectural plans, Narcissus approached him with calculated urgency. "Caesar, I beg a private word." Claudius frowned at the intensity in his secretary's voice. "Speak." Narcissus hesitated, and Claudius sensed something was terribly wrong. "Caesar, the Augusta has married Gaius Silius." Silence. Wind rustled through the harbor cranes. Claudius stared blankly as though Narcissus had spoken another language. "Married?" he repeated, voice cracking slightly. "Yes, Caesar. Today, in the presence of senators and priests." Claudius's hands trembled violently. "But she is my wife." "I know," Narcissus said. "That is why it is treason." Claudius staggered, leaning against a pillar. His mind, sharpened by scholarship but dulled by love, struggled to comprehend betrayal so vast it defied logic. She would never. His voice broke. "Not Messalina." Narcissus stepped closer. "Caesar, she is trying to replace you. Silius seeks your throne." That landed like a blow to the chest. Claudius's face drained of color. "Bring the Praetorian Guard," Narcissus said. "Now, before they strike." Claudius didn't respond. Narcissus repeated more urgently, "Caesar, your life is in danger." At last, Claudius nodded shakily. "Call the guard." And with that order, the world shifted. Back in Rome, the celebration continued, though uneasily. Guests drank, laughed, and pretended to enjoy the spectacle, but their eyes constantly darted toward the doorway, expecting at any moment the crash of armored boots. Messalina ignored the tension, relishing the attention and the risk. She had gambled everything, her status, her influence, her family, on the belief that Claudius was too weak, too trusting, too dependent on her to retaliate. But Silius sensed the danger. "Messalina," he whispered, pulling her aside. "This is no longer a game. The Emperor will hear of this." "Claudius will forgive me," she insisted. "You're deluding yourself," Silius said. "We must act." "How?" she demanded. "Seize the guard. Pressure the Senate. Strike before Narcissus intervenes." Messalina froze. Narcissus, the freedman she underestimated, the one man not blinded by her charm. "We need support," she said. "Crispus, the Praetorian prefects." "Messalina, listen." Silius grabbed her arm. "We either take power now or we die." Those words, spoken softly amid the festivities, carried the weight of fate. Then the warning came. A breathless servant rushed inside, fell to his knees, and stammered, "The Emperor, he is coming, with the guard." A chill swept through the hall. The musicians stopped playing. Guests dropped their cups. Silius closed his eyes for one moment, not of fear, but of acceptance. Messalina broke. "No," she whispered. "No, no, he cannot, he must not." Her composure shattered. For the first time in her ambitious, daring life, she looked truly afraid. Silius gripped her shoulders. "We must flee." But Messalina pulled away. "I can fix this. I can speak to Claudius. He always forgives me." "He will not forgive this," Silius said. But she was already running. Messalina fled the estate, abandoning her new husband, her allies, her guests, fleeing not toward safety, but toward the one thing she believed could still save her, Claudius's forgiveness. She raced toward the palace with her children, Octavia and young Britannicus, in tow. Tears streaked her face. She had manipulated the emperor countless times. She had softened his rage, diverted his suspicions, soothed his doubts. Surely she could again. She was Messalina, empress, mother of his children, the woman who had charmed emperors and terrified senators. Surely he would listen. Surely he would understand. Surely he would still love her. Meanwhile, in Ostia, Claudius sat paralyzed as the Praetorian Guard armored themselves. His face was ashen, his voice hollow. "My wife, Messalina, she has dishonored me before the gods," he murmured. Narcissus stood beside him. "She has committed treason, Caesar." Claudius whispered, "Bring me my children." Narcissus gently stopped him. "No, Caesar. Messalina will use them to reach you. You must not see her yet." Claudius trembled and sank onto a bench, aged suddenly by 20 years. Why would she do this?" he whispered. Narcissus did not answer. Some questions haunt emperors more than enemies. Messalina raced toward the Via Ostiensis, frantic, wild with desperation. Her hair fell loose, her sandals snapped, but she did not stop. She would reach Claudius. She would throw herself at his feet. She would remind him of every tender moment, every night of affection, every vow, every child, every memory. She would make him forgive her, because she would not, imagine a Rome where she was not empress. But history had already turned against her, for at the head of the Praetorian Guard rode Narcissus, and he would not let her reach Claudius alive.